Shabbat Shalom, and this is 10 Minutes of Torah. Not two goats whose fate is yet to be determined, and not 33 days of the Omer, otherwise known as Lag BaOmer, but 10 minutes of Torah. Well, this week's Torah portion, once again, is a doubleheader. Baseball season still. And the two Torah portions, hence doubleheader, are called Achrei Mot and Kiddushim, and they follow each other very well. They go together well. How do they go together? How is it that they fit so well? Well, Achrei Mot begins by describing the most ancient ritual that we have for Yom Kippur. As a matter of fact, it is the Torah reading that we read on Yom Kippur, and it talks about the two goats, hence, right? Not two goats, the two goats which are set aside, and one eventually will be sent to Azazel, a term we're not exactly sure what it means, but this goat is sent there. And the other goat is given to the Kohen Gadol for a sacrifice. And in the description of Yom Kippur, way back in the days of the Torah itself coming into being, in the description of Yom Kippur, it talks about also that Yom Kippur is a day of forgiveness, of expiation of sin, and a day in which we should practice self-denial, which almost all commentators, both modern and medieval, say that means to fast. In other words, the main parts that we do today on Yom Kippur are already found in its very beginnings. The idea of fasting, that certainly is a major part of Yom Kippur. The idea of being made pure before God, of being forgiven for sin. And it starts out with this very interesting two goats, which are a part of the original ceremony, but of course we do not use today. Now, Yom Kippur is our holiest day. From there, Achrei Mot, we go into the second Torah portion, Kiddushim. And Kiddushim is not about a holy day, but how to live a holy life. That's what the word Kiddushim means. It is a term that means something like separated but in a positive way. Holy is the term we usually use. And Kiddushim gives us all sorts of rules of how to live a holy life, not on a holy day like Yom Kippur, but a holy life, telling us first and foremost, you shall be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy. And it goes through many different laws of what it means to be holy, some of which are quite familiar to us from other parts of the Torah, like giving proper honor or respect to your parents, or not stealing. Now, I want to talk about one particular aspect that fascinates me in Kiddushim this week, but I also want to first tell you, before I get to Kiddushim, about Lag BaOmer, about the 33rd day of the counting of the Omer. I mentioned a bit of it last week, but Lag BaOmer, we count 49 days from Pesach to Shavuot. And it is a time, it seems, of joy, but what happened historically, to remind you, what happened historically is 24,000 students of Rabbi Akiva, the great Rabbi Akiva, the great Talmudic scholar, died of a plague, which many historians believe is the Roman army. But they died of a plague, and that plague led up on the 33rd day of the Omer. So we practice some communal rites of mourning during the first 33 days of the Omer, when Rabbi Akiva's students, almost 2,000 years ago now, but Rabbi Akiva's students were were suffering in some way, shape, or form. We still carry that over through history. And so essentially there are two things that we don't do during this time, these 33 days. One is we don't get married. Now, if you get married, it's a valid marriage. And I've seen many a wedding that has been scheduled during this time because they forgot, because it was not a concern, whatever it might be. But traditionally, we don't schedule a wedding during the first 33 days of the Omer. But on Lag BaOmer, the day where the plague let up, we no longer have those communal rites, those communal acts of mourning, and therefore it's okay to rejoice as a community. So from Lag BaOmer, from the 33rd day of the counting of the Omer onward, we allow for all sorts of moments of joy and happiness, including, of course, weddings. The other thing that we don't do during the first 33 days of the Omer traditionally is we don't cut our hair, because cutting our hair or not cutting our hair is also a symbol of mourning. So that's one custom that I actually feel very attached to. You'll see my hair is getting a little bit longer. I mean, I like having that symbol, knowing for 33 days that a little bit more than that, because just before Pesach, you don't cut your hair. It's, to me, it's a meaningful symbol done. Those are the two pieces that we traditionally don't do during the first 33 days of the Omer. And next week, this coming Thursday, will be Lag BaOmer, Thursday night, the 33rd day of the counting of the Omer. And as I said, on that day, many people will got married. It's their wedding anniversary. It's time we can begin celebration. So, okay, I wanted to make mention of the calendar there. And now let's go back to the second Torah portion, Kiddushim. Because besides leading a holy life by doing the things that I mentioned that really are parts of the Ten Commandments, there's something that is added in this week's Torah portion that I think is unique. I have not seen it elsewhere, and the way it is taught to us is done in a way that I think makes it very special to Judaism, and that is what is called leket, peah, and shichacha. Now, what is that? That has to do with the gathering of your produce. Leket is if you're gathering produce as you're harvesting it and you drop some on the ground, not yours anymore, belongs to the poor person. You may recall in the book of Ruth, who was gleaning, that's the technical term, behind Boaz and his workers, and every time they would drop something, they dropped a lot, she would pick it up. So leket is one. Shichacha means something that is forgotten. At the end of the day, you'd take all of the bundles of sheaves that you made and you'd put them separately. But if you forgot a bundle out in the field, that field became available to people who were poor. And the third item that's added here is peah, the corner of your field. You have to leave the corner of your field for the poor person. In that case, it's not a question of picking up something that was already harvested or gathering together something that was forgotten in the field. But peah, the corner of the field, is for the individual to harvest themselves. It's not a giveaway. It's not the person whose land it is handing something out. It belongs to the poor person. And we give them the dignity of going out into the field and harvesting it themselves. And I think this is the Torah's way of telling us truly what a holy life is. Yes, we've got the holy day, Achrei Mot, the first part of Yom Kippur. But Kiddushim, how we treat other human beings, and not just how we treat them, but how we allow them to continue with a sense of dignity. There are very few things, I think, more important to human beings than their own dignity. And so the Torah says, yes, you may be poor, you may not have your own land, you may have to, unfortunately, gather things in for your family in this manner, but we're going to give you the dignity of working the land and of being able to bring that back home and to say that you yourself harvested this. And that points to me to leading a holy life, not just on Yom Kippur, but throughout the rest of the year. Not just in what we might do, but also in how we make other people feel. Well, this has been 10 Minutes of Torah. Not 2 goats, not those goats from Yom Kippur, and not 33 days of the Omer, Lag BaOmer, not 33 days of the Omer, but rather 10 minutes of Torah. Shabbat Shalom.